Hi there, ABMP listeners. I'm Angie Parris, licensed massage therapist, yoga teacher, and Chopra certified in meditation, Ayurveda, and lifestyle coaching. I'm also the advertising director for ABMP, and you're listening to the ABMP Podcast, a podcast that speaks uniquely to the massage and bodywork community. In July, we celebrated ABMP's Massages for Everybody Week, which is part of a larger movement followed by Guiding Principles. During that week, ABMP partnered with Lodo Massage and volunteered at Children's Hospital here in Colorado. Together, we provided chair massage to the medical staff. As part of the movement, we encouraged members in the community to enter their stories. Participants are eligible to receive a $1,000 grant toward their work. In July, we announced the winners, and their stories are available to read on abmp.com. You can find the link in the show notes. From helping senior citizens to at-risk teens, veterans, cancer patients and survivors, and other underserved populations, you are sure to be moved and inspired by these incredible stories. Today, we're being joined by Melanie Burns. Melanie is the CEO of Anatomy Trains and director in Europe and the UK. She comes with an extensive background in international business, a bachelor's degree in psychology, and is a licensed massage therapist. She also owns and operates a 500 yoga teacher training in Maine and teaches polyvagal theory at Kripalu. She recently returned from volunteering in Ukraine to train manual therapists to work with soldiers injured from war, primarily amputees and those suffering from head trauma. And you can read more about her bio in the show notes. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Angie. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Well, I am super curious about what brought you to the Ukraine. What motivated you to take this brave journey?
Yeah, a few things. Coming from being of service and wanting to train people to work with over 100,000 amputees that have suffered since the invasion in February of 2022. And there was a team of international therapists, and I was friends and colleagues with quite a few of them. So we were in a WhatsApp group, and some of them had been to Ukraine before. And one of them teaches at Anatomy Trains. His name is Wojtek Kakowski, and he developed a program called Zoga based on the Anatomy Trains principles. And he had encouraged me to go over to Ukraine as well. So that was one of the reasons that I went.
Man, so how long were you there?
We were there for about 10 days. The journey takes a little bit of time because you can't fly into Ukraine. It's a war zone. So we had to fly into Warsaw and then take a bus, which took about a day. And you go through customs and immigration in Poland, and then the same thing in Ukraine. So it takes a while to get there and then a while to return. Yeah, so we have to travel, add like a full day of travel on both ends, getting into and out of the country.
So how many of there were you?
There were 8 of us altogether. Yeah.
Were you escorted in some way? Like how were you getting into the country?
No, it was a team of us, and Wojtek, who speaks Polish, and there was another person from Poland with us as well. So we were traveling together. Some people had arrived earlier by train, but yeah, we were all kind of on the bus together. Yeah.
Wow. So what were all the thoughts and feelings going through you as you were making your way into Ukraine?
Yeah, I was a little nervous, obviously, entering into a war zone. And kind of while we were there, Russia had some of the worst drone attacks that they had, and the air raid sirens had gone off. So that was something to experience in person, and also just be aware of. People are going through that every day in their life, and walking around and seeing people who are going to school and getting married and going about the day-to-day life with humor and a sense of vitality that I hadn't really seen a lot of, and just kindness. And yeah, it was wonderful to be there, to be in the country of Ukraine. And we were in a part called Lviv, which is a little bit closer to the border of Poland. So it's a little bit of further into Western Ukraine. So that was where we were, in a rehabilitation center.
Wow. So yeah, tell us more about like who you were working with. What was your mission? What were you there to achieve?
Yeah, so the place is called Rehabilitation Glitchnia. I hope I say it correctly. My Ukrainian needs a little bit of work. And the director had invited us to come back again. Her name is Christina, and she is a she works with infants. So she's a natologist, but she also is a rehabilitation specialist, and she works with soldiers, many of whom had multiple amputations and some had traumatic brain injury. So part of the work we were doing was training physical therapists, osteopaths, manual therapists in working with scar tissue. One of the biggest issues that people have who suffer from amputations is phantom limb pain. And my husband's father, interestingly enough, was an amputee from World War II. So my husband grew up with someone who was missing a limb. So that was kind of a personal experience for him that he had grown up with. And he shared several stories with me about that, about phantom limb pain. So I was very curious about that and how we might be able to work with the nervous system as well on that. And a lot of the soldiers who had received sessions from us reported that their phantom limb pain had decreased and that they were able to sleep better. So in addition to training a lot of the students who attended with us, the models that we were working on were actually soldiers who had suffered from injuries during war, whether that was head injuries or amputations or having severe scars from shrapnel or from IEDs. So we were working with them quite a bit. And while we were not teaching and working with students, we were also working on some of the soldiers directly. So some of the team of 8 that we had with us had different types of experience. For me, it was more structural integration. So I was looking more at the whole body and how people were using their bodies in walking or in gait with. Some of them had prosthetics, some of them were being fitted for prosthetics, some of them were in wheelchairs. So how they were using their upper body as well. So I was working with the whole body. Some of the team members that we were with were working primarily on scar tissue. I was also working with people who had brain injury, doing a lot of work on what Sharon Wheeler calls rolfing the cranium or structural integration for the cranium. So getting the head back on the neck and working with the face and the jaw and any compensatory patterns that people may have experienced from the result of injury.
Man, that is amazing.
Sorry, that was a mouthful.
No, that's exactly what we want to hear. That's incredible. So my brain starts to go to a little bit of, I'm sure there's got to be emotional trauma and things like that too. Did any of that show up while you were working with people, and how did you handle any of that?
Yeah, quite a bit of it. Some of the soldiers whom the Ukrainians really endearingly call our defenders. So precious to hear them speak so with such high respect and regard for the soldiers in Ukraine. And I was working with one in particular. He must have been about 21 years old, and his English was great. And he just said, "I've been waiting 2 years for you." He said, "This is the first time I haven't had pain in my body after his session." And he just kept saying, "Great, great," whenever I was working with him. And the interesting thing was that it's the deep tissue work, the deep work of structural integration, where you're contacting different layers of fascia that seem to have the most meaning for them and bringing them into the present moment. Whereas the very light touch felt electric to them. It wasn't very welcome. So it was more of the deeper work that we were doing. And also because of the traumatic impact to the bones, at the end of the amputation, the bones were a little bit wider. So bringing that compression in seemed to be giving them a lot of relief. So doing that type of work as well. So yeah, there was a lot of emotion in the team, but we were so tight as a group. We were together from breakfast at like 7:00 in the morning. We got on a bus and a little minivan that took us out to the rehabilitation center, which is about 30 minutes away. And we were together all day until about 7:00 at night. And we usually went out to dinner together. So we get to know each other pretty well. And everyone brought something different, a different type of experience. We had, Sharon, obviously, with her specialty in scar work and bone work. And then Wojtek was more focused on movement and different vectors in fascia and fascial glide. In addition to being a really good body worker, we also had someone who was doing a little bit more of sort of a Thai. His specialty was in structural integration, but also incorporating a little bit of Thai yoga massage. We had a physical therapist, a rolfer, a Heller worker. So we had a lot of people with different ranges of experience in body work, and everybody brought, something different from their toolkit, and we were sharing with each other. what postural patterns we were seeing and how we could work with the soft tissue that was holding the bones together, and looking at a little skeletal geometry in postural assessment and body reading, and how we could help people feel better in their bodies and give them more a sense of breathing. That's one of the goals of structural integration, is for the person to have a full breath. It's for the client to have a success, but also to give them a better experience of their breath. And as you probably know, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners know, when there's a severe traumatic event, people can get a little bit stuck on the inhale. So it's more of allowing that experience of breathing to be able to be remembered, reintegrated, encouraged gently, and in a way that the nervous system can respond to it and to absorb it, so people can come back to themselves and back to being fully occupied in their own body.
Was there a particular, I guess, client that you were working with that really stood out to you? Is there a memorable story that you have?
Yeah, there are a few. One of them was in special forces, and he had an amputation and several injuries, and he was there with his wife as well. A lot of the wives accompanied some of the soldiers when they came in for sessions, and I was working with two students who were working on scar tissue more on the lower body, and I was working more on his head and neck and his chest to give him a better sense of breathing and to allow his shoulders to rest a little more easily in the harness of his rib cage. After finishing that session, I spent quite a bit of time on his head, neck, shoulders, rib cage. And then I had gone on in another part of the room to work with someone else. And he and his wife he was in his wheelchair and he's with his wife, and he rolled over to where I was working and made sure he said to me, thank you so much, in English. And it was just so touching. It was really moving that he had gotten so much from the session. And a lot of them hadn't really been touched that deeply on a physical level. I also got to work with one soldier's wife. I worked just specifically on her, and that I think was a really powerful session for her as well, to be able to come a little bit more, get a more sense of herself, after caring for somebody for such a long time.
I love that you even reached out to the spouses too. I mean, because that part is real too. They're living the trauma, and they're right beside them. But that's a shared experience to a certain degree as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and the family is such an integral part of the rehabilitation process as well, because um, a lot of the soldiers, when they first have a pretty severe injury, they're in a war zone, so they teach them how to put on a tourniquet, and then they typically will go into surgery immediately. But there might have to be another surgery after that, depending on how the amputation is healing and where in the bone it is. So, after multiple surgeries and then getting fitted for prosthetics and then going through the whole rehabilitation process, and having the family support is just so critical, throughout that, and being with everyone who's involved in the rehabilitation, including some of the physical therapists that were at the rehabilitation center, and then hopefully training another generation of body workers who are able to work with scar tissue, who are able to work with bone, able to work with cranium to promote healing, because they have so many. It's like estimated to be 100,000 amputees in Ukraine right now. So that's going to be like a whole generation of people who, with their families, will help to heal and use their limbs in a new way.
Wow, I had no idea it was that large. I mean, that's a lot of undertaking, a lot of work there. But you mentioned that you were training other people there, so this work is going to pay itself forward, right?
Yeah, hopefully, and then they'll go on to train other people as well.
Right.
The scar work in particular is it's really specialized, and Sharon Wheeler, who studied directly with Ida Rolf, has developed and refined scar work, and she has been to Ukraine, I think 5 times. So she's really generously shared from her heart with all of us, and also with all of the students there. And while we were there, we recorded the sessions. We had a brilliant translator, Dima, who is a medical doctor, and he was translating the entire time. So We had video recording, which I uploaded for all of the students so they would have access to it afterwards so that they could continue to practice the techniques that they learned. They could continue to understand the postural assessments. Some of the cranial work is very intricate, so they get to see that again and be able to practice it. And repetition is a form of mastery. So the more that they have access to Sharon's work and to all of the international team that was there, because we videotaped quite a bit of us working as well, they'll be able to go back and revisit that and use it in their own clinical practice when they're out in their own communities.
Were there any unexpected challenges that you encountered, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, not being able to speak Ukrainian is something that I'm working on right now. So having a brilliant translator was wonderful, but there was only one translator. We did have quite a few people who spoke English, which was great for us. And just having so much that you wanted to share with them, but having a very limited amount of time. Often I'd be demonstrating something like I had like 8 people around my table who wanted to learn it immediately. And, structural integration, I have 600 hours of massage therapy and then another 600 for another massage therapy school. And then in addition to that, about 800 hours of training with anatomy train. So it's taken years and years, and I get to study with the brilliant Tom Myers also in the work that I do and be around, on the shoulders of giants, like all of our teachers at Anatomy Trains, and learning from them constantly. So trying to share that in a very short period of time and be able to get that into people's hearts and hands was a little bit of a challenge. So I'm hoping to go back again. I think I'll be going back beginning of November and then probably back again in May.
Is there anything that you learned on this trip that as you prepare for the next trips you may do differently or maybe expand upon, or what are your intentions?
Yeah, my intention is probably to continue with the group that we have and continue with Sharon and also with Wojtek and some of the other teachers, but I'll probably stay a little bit longer and do clinical practice just with the soldiers directly and their families. I think that would be really helpful to me in having a sense of working with them directly because they got so much out of it. And they seem to report that they could sleep better, they were in less pain, and especially working with the families was really wonderful. So I'll probably spend a little bit more time there. And there's another clinic that works directly with the soldiers themselves outside of the training of the students that we were doing.
I know a lot of times for me, when I'm working with clients, there's a lot that I will learn from them, and just even in a session, there's something that I get to take away too. Is there anything in your experience that you're like, "Ooh, this is golden," and this is for me, like that I'll incorporate into my life?
Yeah, it was a beautiful reinforcement of working with the breath. So when I'm doing, especially with deep work, going in more on the exhale, so encouraging the client in inhale and then exhale for a deeper stroke. It seems there's a lot less guarding and resistance in the nervous system, less fighting of tissue, I guess is what we would call it. There's a lot more glide, so that was a beautiful reinforcement. Also, the power of movement, and that movement can be accessible to anybody in their rehabilitation. So when we're doing work like structural integration and working with patterns, it's not just static. It needs to be incorporated into their life and into their movement. And the practice that Wojtek, who's Polish, developed called Zoga, he had sessions with some of the soldiers, and they were on a mat. They did not have their prosthetics on, and they were doing quite a bit of movement, especially for the upper body, for hydration and glide of their fascia, their nervous system, their whole neurovascular system was nourished from that as well.
So if somebody else were curious about doing work similar to this, or, do structural integration and go to a war zone like Ukraine, or do anything else, what advice would you give to somebody?
Depending on whether they want to travel or not, I would say start to work within your local community and see what's needed there. There are a lot of organizations that go into different communities. There's one called Hands with Heart, and he's an osteopath, and he goes to Ukraine. He also goes into areas in Central and South America that normally wouldn't have access to an osteopath or to manual therapists, especially working with children. that are struggling with various issues. And so there are quite a few organizations like that. There's also one called Superhuman, which is in Ukraine, and they fit people for prosthetics. So there's an opportunity to work with them. The rehabilitation center and will include in the show notes also if people are interested in traveling to Ukraine and doing that. But yeah, there are just so many opportunities locally and international to be able to volunteer if you can.
This is incredible because, I mean, it's easy. It's so easy to get stuck. It's so easy to get frozen and feel like there's nothing. What do I have to offer? I can't do it, whatever. And it's just even the words you're saying about how when we practice yoga, it's not just about yoga on the mat. It's how do you bring that into your life and how do you take those lessons that you're learning. And just one of the things is just slowly, little by little, small steps are what's going to create bigger change for you in your life. And even when you're frozen and scared of, well, how do I reach out to a community that I have a heart for, but I may not be connected or a part of or whatever. And it's you have to just go do it. There's never going to be a perfect moment, a perfect time or whatever. You just have to make that choice to just go step into the ring and just go do. I'm re-inspired. I mean, I've been in this profession for 25 years, something like that. I have no idea how long I've been in it. And you just go through those hills and valleys. And sometimes you can just get really exhausted and burned out. And what am I even doing? And then talk to somebody like you. And it's just like, whoa, like this is amazing. Like this is beautiful work that we're doing and just keep going. Right. So, thank you so much.
If there's a time when the world needed touch, it's right now. Thank God for massage therapists and body workers and
Yeah.
Healers of all kinds. But,
Right. We need more.
Yeah.
We need more. We need more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you to all the teachers too who teach in massage therapy schools and thank you to ABMP for sharing everything with them and keeping people inspired.
Yeah. Thank you for doing your good work and for making sure that you even go back and continue on. I think there's a lot left there to be done here. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you'd like to learn more about Melanie and the work she does, you can check out the show notes and read her bio. And Melanie, how else could they follow you or follow your work?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO of Anatomy Train, so it's anatomytrains.com, and we offer certification programs in structural integration. We do trainings all around the world. If you get a chance to study with Tom Myers, I highly encourage it. He's a brilliant teacher, and we also have some superb teachers both in Australia and Europe. We just graduated our first group of certified structural integrators in China, in mainland China, just in July. We have courses in Japan. You can also follow me on Instagram under Wicked Good Yoga. I'm on Facebook under Melanie Burns. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. It's mel@anatomytrains.com. And I'd love to hear more.
That's awesome. Yay. So if this story inspired you and you'd like to share your story with us here at ABMP, we invite you to send it to differentstrokes@abmp.com. Have a great day, listeners. Stay inspired and keep doing your good work.